It's a shame they don't give trophies out for transfers, right? Because if they did, we'd probably get sellers of the century. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And I am back. It has been a tough few days navigating the troubled waters of YouTube's algorithm, and my account's been banned, and my watch hours got reset, and it's all been a bit of a stress. But I'm back, and everything seems to be fixed. So, thank you so much to everyone who's given me so much encouragement over the last couple of days. You lot are a bunch of legends. But you don't want to hear about that, do you? You want to hear about the Chelsea news, and let's get into it. Outgoings is the big news at the moment, right? I will get into some of the incoming stuff towards the end of the video, but for right now, let's just focus on who we're looking at shifting out of the club. So let's start with the big one, right? Apparently, Tyrique George is agitating for a move away from the club. And I'm not surprised, really. I'm not surprised. It kind of makes sense. There's just so many players being brought in, and he's probably thinking, oh man, I struggled for game time last season, but I made loads of progress, and I really think like if I can get some more game time, I can really kick on. And with this being linked with Garnacho on top of already having Jamie Gittins and having all of these other players that can play that position as well, it probably looks like chances are going to be few and far between for Tyrique George. So I do understand him agitating for a move. Now, I had the distinct pleasure of featuring on a live stream with the Blue Lounge the other night, and we had a bit of a chat about Tyrique George with the panel. And the general consensus, which I was completely there before, was Tyrique George shouldn't be sold, he should be loaned. We should try and retain some of that interest in him because he could develop into a really good player. But upon reflection and trying to think about like not just what, do we think is best for the player in the structure that we're all used to, but trying to think about what would actually be best for Tyrique George's development and best for Chelsea's new kind of structure and the way of doing things, right? I have my own little idea about why selling Tyrique George might be a good solution. We are very embroidered in the sister club situation / system at the moment. For instance, we bought Mati Samugu 6 months ago, and we've just sold him to Strasbourg. We bought Diego Moreira and sold him to Strasbourg as well. So these sorts of sales are not really sales, are they? They are kind of more long-term loans with more financial implication. And I know Tyrique George wants to go to the Bundesliga, and we don't have any sister clubs in there yet, but if you were to go somewhere to like a Red Bull Leipzig, for instance, they've got a multi-club model, we've got a multi-club model. I can 100% see Todd Bowley and Igbali cozying up to the Red Bull guys, being like, we really like your system, we want to do lots more of this and that and whatever together, making friends, doing business. And I can see us selling Tyrique George to somewhere like Red Bull Leipzig with a buyback clause, right? So if we sell Tyrique George on the cheap for like 15 mil or 10, 15 mil or something like that, he goes to that club, and the idea is that's his club now. They've bought it. They've invested money in him, and they're going to be interested in developing that asset, rather than when sometimes when you loan a player, there's less interest in that kind of thing. Vis-a-vis Andre Santos at Nottingham Forest, for instance. So if Tyrique George gets sold to a club with a buyback clause, he goes there thinking, this is my club now. The club buys him. And even though there's a buyback clause, they're thinking, right, okay, so we have invested money in this player and we are going to put time into him. So for his development, I actually think that might be for the best. And I think it's just indicative of the kind of business that Blueco are looking to do. And I've mentioned it a few times. I think they're kind of looking, especially for Chelsea, to change the landscape and the way business is done. Loans come with all of their own troubles, and clubs ultimately may well be less invested in that loan player because they haven't paid any money for him, and they might have just bought him in to fill a squad gap. And the player might not feel as, invested in either, which can obviously harm their development. So I like Tyrique George, and the crux of it for me is if we can sell him for a really cheap price now, get a little bit of money on the books, but put in like a 20, 25, 30 mil buyback clause, if in 2-3 years he turns out to be amazing and he's had all of that time to develop, and we desperately need him on our team because he's better than the likes of Garnacho or Jamie Gittins, then if we can buy him back for 20, 30 mil in a few years, then it's all good, isn't it? That isn't a huge amount of money to spend on a winger if we desperately want him in our team because he looks like he's going to be so good. So that's my 2 cents on that, but now I will move on. It looks like Leslie Ugochukwu will be following Armando Broja to Burnley. And again, it's a bit of a shame, but we haven't had him for that long. He made he featured quite heavily in last year's pre-season, I think, and he did all right out at Southampton, albeit for them getting relegated. But we have got such a stacked midfield at the moment with the likes of Lavia, Rasugo, Caicedo, do you know what I mean? We've got so many players that can play that position. If we bring him back, he's just going to sit on the bench. And at the end of the day, we need money now because we need to buy players in. We need to satisfy UEFA's problems with us. So getting Ugochukwu off the books is a bit of a shame, but makes sense to me. I wish him all the best at Turf Moor, hooking up with Armando Broja. And I've said it before, my best friend is a Burnley fan. So when they're in the Premier League, I'm always following them closely. Okay, up next it is Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. We got the here we go for him going to Everton, right? And just makes sense. 25 mil up front with another 5 mil add-ons. At the end of the day, we made back what we spent on him, and there were some eyebrows raised when we spent that much on him in the first place, right? It wasn't exactly like, oh, we desperately want this championship player, here's 30 mil. Do you know what I mean? It was very much kind of felt like Maresca could probably do with a player who knows his tactics a little bit, and do you know what I mean? But he just obviously, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall really struggled for game time, featured reasonably prominently in the Europa Conference League, but never really got close to getting into the first team, and even like was farmed out like on the right wing towards the end of the season just because our winger situation was so bad. So it's not a surprise. It feels like football's worst kept secret at the moment that Kiernan Dewsbury Hall was probably not destined to get into the Chelsea first team. But he did a good job for us. He scored some cool goals, and there does look like there's a player in there, right? And Everton seem to be on some sort of serious comeback, and I think he'll probably do really well in that team. And again, I wish him no ill will, and I hope he does well over at Everton, because there does look like there's a player there. But like I said, the midfield for us, man, was so stacked at the moment. He was just never going to get a chance. So we make our money back. He gets to go and play football. Wicked all round, I think. So there's a little bit of interesting news about Borussia Dortmund being in for like all of our players. Like, no, not all of our players, but there are 3 players in particular that they seem to be talking about at the moment. They're still interested in a permanent deal for Carney Chukwumeka, who has been out there on loan. So that would kind of make sense to see that one happen. I've spoken about Carney a little bit recently. It is just a shame, man. That is just a shame. He looked like he had real potential and could have been a massive player, but that early development was curtailed by injury woes, and he's just, again, we've changed and developed our team so much in the past few years. He's not getting in over a Cole Palmer or potentially a Xavi Simons or an Enzo Fernandez. It's just not going to happen. So let's make some money for him, and again, wish him all the best, man. None of these players have kicked off or complained or made any issues, do you know what I mean? So I do appreciate the professionalism. A lot of these players will just be treating Chelsea like a stepping stone to whether it be bigger or smaller things that they get onto, and Carney Chukwumeka is going to be one of those. I would like to see him do well because he looks like a proper player. And Borussia Dortmund have also shown interest in Tyrique George and Renato Vega. So like I said before, Tyrique George is interested in a Bundesliga move. I think Dortmund would be brilliant for him, if I'm being completely honest. The only thing I don't love about that is how they are with negotiating, right? Like, I just went on this whole spiel about, you know, buyback clauses and development and whatever. I don't think that Borussia Dortmund would sign off on like a really cheap buyback clause from us, or if they do, it would be a really situational one, like it has to be this specific window, or do you know what I mean? Borussia Dortmund are absolutely wicked negotiators, and I would like to see Tyreek George there because they're so good at developing young players. But I think if he did end up at Dortmund, we would probably not get a particularly favourable deal when trying to get him back, and it probably would end up costing quite a lot. And they're also interested in Renato Vega, so the Renato Vega news has been constant and kind of dipping off at the same time. It's like we know he's going to get sold, absolutely. Bayern Munich are interested in him. I think Al Nassr were interested in him for a point as well after they made that random bid for Cucurella. And now Borussia Dortmund are interested in him, which again kind of makes sense. He's a young player, very versatile, very intelligent, smart, technical guy. I don't think Borussia Dortmund are going to buy 3 players off of us, do you know what I mean? And I don't think, as far as I'm aware, that we're in for any Borussia Dortmund players. I remember couple of seasons ago, a season ago, something like that, we were in for Adeyemi. Do you know what I mean? They're really, really nippy left winger. And evidently we are still in for a left winger. So maybe there's something in that we just haven't seen yet. But either way, they look like they're just trying to stock up on good, talented young players. And we happen to have lots of those for sale. So let's get into Raheem Sterling. Again, kind of like the Vega stuff. Like, it's going to happen if the right deal can be found and can be met at the end of the day. It's just one of those, isn't it? Raheem Sterling, it's just wages. I guess the only reason that no one has just completely signed off him yet is even if he's willing to drop his wages, do you know what I mean? It's like, that's from like 300k a week. Maybe he's willing to go down to 200. But for the likes of the teams that are linked with him, maybe that's a bridge too far. But he does seem very keen to stay in London, right? Because it is Palace, Fulham and West Ham that are touted with interest. Graham Potter in particular would really like to bring him to West Ham. So one or two things is either going to happen. One of these clubs is going to have to be willing to pony up for the wages, or Sterling is going to have to reduce that wage. But what it is looking like, Sterling is not interested in being left at Chelsea. We've just seen he's been excluded from like the first team on the website and stuff, and you know, him and Chilwell were not featuring in the plans at all for Chelsea. So if they end up staying at the club, they are just not going to play at all, and that is not really good for them, and no one really wants to see that. So hopefully some sort of middle ground can be met between the crazy wages that he wants, right? Because it just works the best for everyone. We're not even asking crazy money for him, like 20 mil. We will make a loss on Raheem Sterling, that is absolutely sure. So hopefully he can just say, okay, I'm just going to lower my wages because I want to play football. Otherwise, he can get still paid an absolute bag till 2027 because that's when we've got him till, but he's just not going to play. And last about the outgoings is a little bit of news about Nicolas Jackson, not necessarily pertaining to a club, but David Ornstein has come out and reported that Nicolas Jackson is looking more and more likely to leave Chelsea. And this is the first thing we've seen kind of pro that, right? Maresca just keeps coming out and backing him, saying, no, I like Jackson. Jackson's, really good player. I've got plans for him, this, that, and the other. But when someone like David Ornstein comes out and says, he's probably gonna be on his way, then that's, when it starts to feel a little bit more realistic. I am still convinced, and I mentioned it in a video the other day, that Jackson is going to be the last piece of the puzzle in the Benjamin Sesko move, because there's 3 strikers involved in that, right? You've got Sesko, Ollie Watkins, and potentially Jackson. If Man United or Newcastle get Benjamin Sesko, the other one will probably get Ollie Watkins, and then that will free up someone like an Aston Villa or maybe a Newcastle to end up getting Jackson. Or maybe Jackson's the preferred option over Ollie Watkins because he is a lot younger and has a lot more potential. But like I say, I just sort of see him being a later piece of this domino effect that is probably going to fall sometime soon. But I think we'll have to wait for the Benjamin Sesko news to get over the line before we see that happen. So that's all of today's news about the outs. There's probably more stuff that I've missed because there's so much news and I've taken a day off, so I'm literally playing catch up. But let's have a little look at some of the ins that I've seen potentially being thrown around in the last day or two. So Garnacho talks are getting solid, right? There is literally talks between the club and Garnacho's entourage. It just feels like it's going to happen. It all just comes down to price, isn't it? I think anything less than 40 mil for a Garnacho is not an unreasonable price. And no, I'm not particularly buzzed about having Garnacho on the team, but if I'm completely honest, in my head, I see it like a João Felix kind of thing. I think if we can get him for a reasonable price, then you kind of take the punt on that, don't you? And it fills out that left spot for Enzo Maresca a little bit more in terms of squad depth. And if he doesn't do that well and we've bought him for 30 mil, look at what we're doing, man. We're selling Kiernan Dewsbury Hall for 30 mil to Everton after buying him for 30 mil from Leicester. Do you know what I mean? We've got some of the best negotiators on the planet. And if Garnacho comes in and just doesn't work out, I don't think he'll fall flat on his face, right? I think the thing with Garnacho will be if he comes in, he might just end up, like I say, like a João Felix who gets opportunities and gets chances but flatters to deceive. And if that happens, then I think we'll end up just selling him, do you know what I mean, to an Al Nassr or an Italian club, or do you know what I mean? He wants to stay in the Premier League, and I don't think we'll give him, I think maybe we'll give him 2 seasons, do you know what I mean? But I can't really see us giving him much more than 2 seasons to kind of come in and prove his worth. And I'm going to wrap the news up today with incoming that has kind of come out of nowhere. So supposedly we're looking at Fermin Lopez from Barcelona. Now, I did a bit of an audible sigh when I read this because I was like, oh man, another central-ish attacking midfielders. Like, if we do get Xavi Simons, like, where are all these people going to play, man? It is just nuts. We're going to end up with so many players that it is definitely going to start causing some problems. But there are some reasons to say maybe that won't happen, right? I have seen something from Maresca recently, like a really interesting conversation around Maresca's idea for the future. He's not necessarily looking at having a first 11, right? It is about having lots of different players to give you lots of different options depending on the team that you're playing. Low block team, put this guy on. High press team, put this guy on. Super dominant possession team, put this guy on. Do you know what I mean? So it seems like, and there are so many games now as well. Do you know what I mean? Just look at what's happened with the Club World Cup and how long this season's been. And now there's only going to be one gap every 4 years for all these players. Do you know what I mean? So it's probably not even just about having all the players to be able to play at the time, because there's so much football. Next summer is the World Cup, and then there's a break after that, but then we've got the Euros, and then the year after that there's the Club World Cup again. So it's all just going to happen so quickly, and there's going to be so many games. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that is also like anticipating the evolution of football, and having these bigger squads is going to be commonplace in the future. You got people like Pep Guardiola who are like, I need just 22 players on my squad, and I completely agree with that for modern football as it is. But then you got people like Rodri on his team, do you know what I mean, that are coming out and complaining about how many games they've got to play. And because he's so integral to that team, he played so much. So I do think that it is actually potentially looking about protecting players as well, right? And anyway, Fermin Lopez, all right, that means we might have 3 young, wicked attacking midfielders on our team. And there are probably going to be some issues with people not getting enough game time, or people all wanting to play in the Champions League or the Premier League and not being happy with cup games and cup runs and stuff. But we'll just have to see how it goes. Apparently, we tried to swap Christopher Nkunku for him, and Barcelona were like, nope. So they do maintain some interest in Nkunku, but swap deals are just still really not a thing, are they? We keep trying to do them, and I think it's because, in American football, it's all trades, and do you know what I mean? They obviously The Blueco guys probably see it a little bit different to how we do. But I think financially, sales just are so much better on your books because you get the full value for the player on your books in the year that you sell him. And I would imagine that probably won't count for as much if you do a player swap. So, mate, woo, there is so much happening and there is still stuff that we're waiting on. It feels like the Xavi Simons news could drop any moment now. It feels like the Garnacho news could ramp up really, really quickly. There's still ongoings to talk about, but it is really promising to see all of the outgoings that we're looking at doing. So hopefully it all just happens really quickly and we can kind of just start looking at the football, which is what I keep saying. I really just want to start talking about the football. Obviously, the preseason starts soon. I wouldn't really expect to see the likes of Cole Palmer and Cucurella and Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez playing much in the preseason, to be completely honest, because obviously they featured so much through last season and they featured so much in the Club World Cup. These guys are going to need a break. And I think it's also a good opportunity to start testing out, you know, your Asugos and your Delaps and your João Pedros and, you know, Jamie Gittins and Garnacho and whoever we get in, Esteval Willian in particular. I'm not going to do like match predictions or anything for preseason because I do think it's just going to be such a mix and match of like who we've got available and who we want to try out. But ultimately, we're getting close to the football, so that's really cool. So there's just a couple of things I want to say before I finish out the video. I want to thank everyone so much for all of the support you've given me over the last few days. It has been stress, man. It has been absolute stress. I woke up twice in 3 days with emails from YouTube saying your account has been banned because you've been violating these policies. And then I'm appealing and they literally giving it straight back. So what I'm starting to think is happening, I know YouTube have made a lot of changes in their algorithm recently and they're looking at cracking down on stuff like you know, like AI generated content and repeated stuff. And I don't really fit into that category at all. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, maybe they're just figuring out their algorithm and for some reason it's been picking up my channel and cutting it off. But it hasn't happened again. And so far, so good. Also, yesterday I woke up on my day off from YouTube and looked at my, you know, my YouTube's earning page and it was like, you have 0 valid public watch hours. And I was like, what's going on, man? What's going on? So I've had a bit of a moan about it in my community posts, but you guys have been so nice and I really, really appreciate it. And a massive thanks to especially Dominic and Mr. Chelsea. I know you've been going back and watching through all of my old stuff to get those watch hours up and I really appreciate it, man. The closer I can get to that YouTube partner program, the easier it is going to be for me to fix these problems in future. Anyone I haven't seen that's been doing the same thing, thanks so much as well. I really, really, really appreciate it. I just feel like I'm so close to being able to get over the line from being a complete nobody to being someone who YouTube actually starts to care about. And that is all because of you. So thanks. You are wicked. And tell me what you think of the new background, guys. I did it. I bit the bullet. I got a green screen. There is some figuring out I've got to do, but I want to do different backgrounds for, like, you know, who's the better baller and news videos and transfer stuff. And eventually it's going to be all fun and colourful until I can build my own beautiful custom homemade studio, which is absolutely what I want to do. Tell me if you think that this is more interesting than looking at a white wall and a white door just behind me. So nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks very much for sticking around until the end of the video. And I forgot to mention it earlier in the video, but if you're new here, like, subscribe to the channel, man. I'm doing daily Chelsea news. Nice one, guys. I keep my ear to the ground for more news as ever, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Peace.